Today I'm going to show you how to fix the fly in a pair of jeans. So these are my daughter's jeans, and you can see the fly has come off its runner, plus it's lost some teeth, so I need to take the whole fly out and fix it. And that can seem pretty intimidating, but it's actually easier than you think. All you're going to need is a replacement zip. It doesn't matter if the zip's too long, because we're going to use some pliers to remove the metal teeth. But the number one trick that you want to have is to get a really well matching thread. So although this is an indigo denim, when I take this sort of pale bluey grey thread, I can see that actually that is a better match than if I'd say used a proper indigo thread. And what we're going to do is unpick the zip, but try and leave as much of that top stitching as we can. I've got my unpicker, and I'm going to start off by unpicking along the fly extension. So I'm just going to take off enough at the waistband that I can just remove only the zip portion. Again, I'm wanting to leave as much of the colour of the top stitching as I can, and I've got some quite heavy top stitching, back stitching just there, so I'm just going to leave that for a minute. And turn this round, and I'm just going to slide my unpicker along that stitching. So I can see that it's top stitched in orange at this point. I'm not going to try and copy that because it might be a bit difficult for me to match it, and it's not actually seen because the fly goes over it. And turn that round and just slide my seam ripper along there. And I'm just going to go as far as the opening is down here. You can just see that, just past where the stopper on the zip is. Next, I'm going to come to the inside where the fly facing is, and you can see that actually the zip is stitched down with 2 rows of stitching, but the top stitching side follows the edge of the facing along here, not along the zip, so I'm safe to undo that. So again, I'm just going to undo it along the waistband portion. And there is a lot of back tucking on this pair of jeans at that point. Bit of a fiddle. Then I'm going to undo that stitching, and that's easy to do because I can just slide my seam ripper or unpicker down that stitching, and I'm sort of angling my unpicker up towards the zip because it doesn't matter if I damage that zip, but I don't want to actually ruin the fly facing. Now you can also see that here the fly facing where it was stitched to the fly extension has come away, so I'm just going to cut that so that it frees it up. And that also tells me that actually there was a bit of strain on that zip going over the hips. So when I actually sew that down again, I'm going to sew it lower down just to give my daughter a bit more room for the opening. Now I can see the top stitching comes along the bottom of the zip there, and I don't actually want to unpick that. So what I'm going to do is just cut it through here. I'm just going to slide my seam ripper along the edge of the zip there, like so, and then I undo that second row of stitching. So you can turn that round. I can head back up to the waistband. And just pull that out. Coming back to the facing side, I don't want to undo that stitching there because I know that I can't perfectly match that. So again, I'm just going to actually get a pair of scissors and cut the bottom of the zip in line, And then the zip has been edge stitched down the facing to hold it in place, and we're going to do that too. So I just need to undo a little bit more along here. I've released it from the waistband and just coming down the facing. And where I've snipped it off, so you can see here, I've just cut the bottom of the zip off. And if we look inside the trousers, you can see there is a little bit of the zip left over, but I would rather have that on the inside. It's not creating too much extra bulk and preserve the stitching all through here. Okay, so I'm just going to prepare my zip. Because I haven't removed all of the zip, that means that when I come to insert this zip, it's going to have this excess at the bottom. So what I need to do is on the fly extension side, I'm going to fold the bottom of the zip out of the way, and I'm just going to stitch that in place to hold it. This is just a stay stitching, just to keep it in place. So you can see there, I've just tucked it up. Now, when I come to put this back into the jeans, I can tuck that in, and the stopper will be perfectly positioned at the bottom without any additional bulk. Next, I need to work out how long the zip needs to be. So I'm just going to turn that around with my zip tucked in as far as it'll go, like so. And I'm just going to put a pin in. And when I pin, I always pin perpendicular to my seam so that I can easily take it out. So I'm just working at that length. So I'm coming up to the waistband, and I can see that my zip needs to stop at this point here. And then I need a little bit extra that will tuck under. So I've got all of these teeth that need to come off. So I'm just going to undo the zip, and I'm going to take my pliers, and just above where my pin is, I'm just going to hold that firmly and just pull those teeth out. My pin came out there. Oh, not the camera there. So where'd that pin go? Don't need that pin because I've already got one of those teeth out. So I'm just going to take out enough above that position that I can cut the tape to tuck it into the waistband. And I don't want too much because I've got the button there and there actually won't be that much space for the tape. And I think one more. And I'm going to cut the tape and pop it into the waistband and just check that I've got enough teeth removed. So there we go, and I can see that, yep, that's pretty perfect. So what I'm going to do is actually sew this down before I deal with that other side. Again, I'm just going to put a pin in to hold it in place. Now, the original jeans just had a single row of stitching there, and that's partly because the fly was stitched onto the facing. I'm going to do 2 rows of stitching so that it's a bit stronger. So I've got my machine threaded up in the matching thread, and you just need to sort of get that button out of the way and I've got my stitch length set to a medium length, a small medium length, and I don't have a zipper foot on because what I find is that if I use my regular foot I can stitch more easily because the zip is actually supporting on the foot as well. So I'm going to do my first row of stitching. Make sure you back tack and keep that facing nice and even, sewing where that original stitch line was. And you can see because I've got my pins perpendicular, they're really easy to take out, even though this is relatively fiddly. Now I can't sew past the zip because I don't have my zipper foot on, so what I'm going to do is bring my needle almost up, lift the foot, and just bring the stopper up and carry on sewing. And I don't want to take it all the way out though, just in case it does slide off those teeth. So coming down, folding the extension out of the way, back tack. You can see that's in place now, and that stitching is invisible because it's such a great match. And now I'm going to do another row of stitching 2 millimeters from the original. And there we have it. 2 rows of stitching down the side of that fly, and you can see it's actually completely invisible, and on the other side the facing is all held in place nicely. Now I'm going to put another pin in so that I can see where the teeth need to be removed on the other side. Pop that pin in and open it up. And I just want to show you also, I haven't sewn past this stopper on the zip either. That's important. Okay, so I've removed those teeth and I can cut that end off. Next, I need to attach the fly to the facing side of the jean. So I'm going to open the fly up, tuck the zip into the waistband, and a little trick is to use your unpicker and you can just sort of push the end in so that it stays flat, like so. Put a pin in to hold it in place. And then just, you can see where the previous stitching was, so just line that up. Put in a couple of pins. And this time we're going to sew down the fly from the wrong side, and I'm going to set my stitch length to a very short stitch. And the reason I want it to be a super short stitch is because it's going to show on the right side of the jeans where you wouldn't normally see stitching. But if my stitch length is very short, what's going to happen is that it won't actually show. The stitching will just sink into the fibres or the weave of the fabric. So I've got that set to about 1. A little back tack, and I'm just sewing on the edge of the zipper to get it in place first. Coming down. And I'm looking to make sure that the distance from the edge of my zip to the fly front is nice and parallel. back tack. So you can see my stitching on the edge. It's a teeny tiny stitch, and from the front it's actually completely invisible. Now I'm going to sew another row so that it's closer to the actual zipper now that I've held it in place. So this time I'm going to move my needle position over, again not changing the foot, to get closer. Little back tack. Much faster this time because it's already held in place. Back tack to finish. Take it out. And you can see I've got 2 rows of stitching on the zip. And from the front, completely invisible. You can actually see the tails of the thread, but not where it is sewn. So I'm just going to close the zip to check that it is in fact sitting nicely, which it is. And all I need to do now is finish off that waistband. So I'm just going to set my needle back into its normal position and a normal stitch length. And I'm going to sew this close. I'm starting a centimetre behind where I am picked, and I'll finish a centimetre in front of where I'm unpicked. Just trim those threads off. Just careful where you go over the zip, it is metal. I like to just hand turn the wheel just to make sure that I didn't in fact just get a single tooth sort of caught up into that waist seam. Trim those threads. Then the waistband on the other side, you can see because I've been fiddling with it, it's just popped out a bit there. So I'm going to tuck it in using my unpicker again, and this time I'm going to sew it on the wrong side just to make sure it doesn't slip out. And same as before, starting a centimetre behind and a centimetre in front, back tacking. And just hand turning past the teeth. And because the stitching was so heavy there, you can't actually even tell that I even unpicked it. And if anything, the sewing that I've just done has actually secured that stitching as well. So almost finished. All I need to do now is just close the zip a little bit, go into the inside, and you can sort of see the shadow of where it was stitched previously, but I'm going to bring that down. So I've got the facing overlapping. I'm just going to pop a pin in to hold that in place. And I'm just going to do some stitching, not even a zigzag, just straight stitching backwards and forwards a few times. You can see there, stitched there and on that side where the sewing is. And that is the fly fixed on my daughter's jeans. Do that up. Perfect. What a good mum am I.